and we make sure that it also is available for everybody to see on the streaming linked invite. So the four cornerstones of that standard are making sure that social distancing standards, the 1 meter rules, abided by. There's protect and detect technology deployed to ensure people are safe, and there's a cleaning regime ensuring that all places where people touch are cleaned regularly, and there's sanitizers. And finally, a very key important message, which I think is really important for building that confidence that we talk about, is the communication to visitors before, during and after the event to ensure health and safety is maintained. And I put down at the bottom that the significant change, all these controls do have enforced a significant change across industry sectors, but so much more in the event industry because of the volume of people that we have to deal with. And I wanted to kind of demonstrate the impact that COVID-19 had while I was working at Excel. What I've got here is a slide that shows that customer journey. What we were trying to do pre-COVID-19 was map out the experience of a visitor or visitors, gathering their information and gathering their input through surveys, particularly what was experience like off-site when they were registering, what was it like on-site in the venue as they went about their experience during the event, and what was it like post as they left. And as we mapped that out, we were able to understand what we needed to do in terms of redesigning the service. So as you can see, there's a visitor touch point and behavior, and what they were telling us, which shows at the bottom half of that diagram, some of the needs and the pain points they were feeling. And just to highlight, as you can see in the black areas there, in the black boxes, some of the things they were telling us, they were saying that wayfinding could be a little bit more, it could be easier, larger screens with less information on them from a digital signage stroke wayfinding perspective. They wanted social media, so they had news 24/7 effectively or during the event. And they were talking about making sure that they could book meeting rooms quickly, sharply during an event so they could have a private meeting. And a lot of them said they wanted to find out where their car was, where their car was in the car park, and they wanted an app to do that. So those are some of the kind of the service design or the customer journey mapping we did to understand what the needs were from a technology perspective for the visitor pre-COVID. And we used that to kind of work out this diagram. And what this diagram here is effectively a technology IT architecture for an events venue. You've got its strategic platforms at the bottom, you've got its infrastructure, its back office solutions, and then the front office solutions. And that customer journey allowed us to highlight those areas in red were additional needs on top of what we were already doing. And what we were already doing are those areas in blue. So those area in blue was we were moving to a cloud environment. We were using, developing a data platform and a data lake. We were putting in collaboration tools to enhance the experience of the workforce. We were looking at ERP solutions and event management solutions, and we were putting in effective communication network and infrastructure. But the customer experience journey allowed us to do the things at the top there in red. But what happened? Well, we used that as a way, so we used this architecture to drive the smart venue initiative. So a smart venue initiative was turning Excel into not just a place to come for events and exhibitions, but actually a destination. So the dwell time of individuals and the experience was more than just a venue. So people were bringing not only their, not having a personalized experience, but maybe coming earlier and leaving later because there are other types of events. And this is a smart venue maturity model that we used for that experience. And I'm not going to go through it in detail. You can see it was about building the venue foundation and then building the digital venue. And we just started to describe that journey. But what happened is COVID-19 came in. COVID-19 came in, as you can see there, and absolutely annihilated that kind of vision. It's still on the cards. It's now just put on hold, but it kind of stopped us moving into a strategic 3, 4, 5-year plan for the venue. But I don't want to be doom and gloom. It also it's given us another opportunity, and the opportunity, I think, is for technology. Now, I showed you this slide a minute or two ago, and what's really key about this slide is I am now going to lay on what COVID-19, which came in and hit us hard, did to that picture. And what you can see in the next slide is, if you recall, the All Secure standard, which talks about social distancing, talks about communication, track and trace. We were doing all the blue things, as you can see. We would then had the red things, which were new requirements from customer journey mapping. But now COVID-19 has said, well, we need to put in those health and safety controls. So we need to be thinking about using technology to do thermal scanning of individuals. We will need potentially need facial recognition through CCTV cameras to see which individuals are adhering to social distancing and which are individuals and visitors wearing masks. On top of that, there's things like bringing in mobile apps so that we can have contactless payments, we can have contactless ordering of food, and actually the registration process is also contactless and done up front using mobile technology, and organisers getting rid of lanyards so that there's, again, less minimizing human touch points. And on top of that, in the back office, virtual platforms already existed for hybrid events, and hybrid events where there's some physical presence and some streaming. We've had to enhance that. The collaboration tools, we rapidly moved to using things like Microsoft Teams and other platforms like Zoom to ensure that we could work with our colleagues as we went along. The message here, significant change, new standards, and actually the COVID-19 has accelerated the needs for technology, pre-existing and new requirements from customer journey mapping, but new ones that accelerated the health and safety needs for visitors to ensure that they are confident and they feel secure and they feel that they're being looked after from a health and safety perspective when they visit events for the future. I'm going to now stop, and with that kind of message, hand over to David, who's going to go into a little bit more detail around what the future looks like.
And I think the key drivers, and I think the three trends that I think are really going to come out of this are around internet bandwidth, because as Claudius mentioned a couple of times there, around the move towards these collaboration tools, I think people aren't going to want to move away from them. So being able to still collaborate no matter where you are, anytime, I think it's going to be on the duty of event spaces and locations to be able to provide that bandwidth so people are able to do so. I won't go into mobile applications too much because Claudius just mentioned a few of the great use cases there, but essentially I really do see how this is how we can enable touchless services, and then also social distancing and contact tracing. And what my next slide go through is actually what this experience can look like from an events organizer's perspective. So next slide, please, Calder. So, and this is a trend that's already beginning to happen. And I'm going to reference a couple of times my experiences over the last few weeks where I've finally been able to go and enjoy getting back into the pub, going to bars, and actually meeting people. And the first thing you're asked when you go to these spaces now is to do the track and trace. And what I've experienced, it's been around the QR scanning or downloading physical applications, not physical, but applications to the mobile. But each time I've gone, it's almost slipped my mind that I've had to do so. So I've spent time during my queuing process having to do these things. Now, I think it's going to become more and more behavior to download applications and enable these services before going to events. I know there's people who are, I've been a Newcastle fan myself. If I'm going to go to the Stadium of Light, I'm going to be a bit adverse to be seen having a Sunderland branded application on my mobile. However, I really do see this, and as called it highlighted, I really do see that trend accelerating. Because, as I say, these touchless services around downloaded tickets, enabling touchless payments, but also for people who are a bit conscious around going in crowded areas, being able to check best routes and understand how people can navigate around particular event spaces. We've already done this for years in the events and in hospitality around pre-ordering food and drink, but it's always been pen on pad. And I think also it restricts the ability for people to do things on the fly. And I think being able to put technology in place to avoid queues and enable a better flow of individuals is going to be really, really important. And this is where we, in terms of, again, my experiences where I've been into social spaces over the last few weeks, I've noticed landlords, bar owners, people who have owned these spaces looking nervous around when things are getting a little bit crowded. And I think what my understanding of that is essentially, despite us opening and it's okay and we're allowed to go live as of October, the onus is still on the event space to make sure that these checks are being done. So fever detection for all employees to make sure that, at least from a governance perspective of bringing people in, and I think this will be done it'll be a standard now when bringing F&B staff to make sure that's being undertaken. Again, so digital signage, I've alluded to, it's been something that's been happening for a long time. I think anywhere you go now, there's an abundance of screens, and essentially leveraging that technology to be able to guide people around event spaces, whilst also integrating with other tools such as applications, mobile applications, but also operational tools where you buy devices. And what I mean by that is in mobile devices, being in a location, we're able to understand actually where people are congregating, and actually having feet on the street is still going to be really important, because again, when we're increasing or rebuilding the confidence of our employees and customers, actually there's nothing that makes you feel safer than seeing people actually making sure that things are flowing appropriately. And at the same time, we want to ensure that those staff are still there, because that's what helps make the experience great. Also, in terms of building on a current thing that we've seen anyway around event spaces, because of security concerns, in improving their CCTV systems. But we've now got the ability to layer over those solutions, which can actually do fever detection from there. Great thing about that, it's anomalous, but also it also means that if anyone is posing a risk due to higher temperature, we can send someone to them to remove them from the venue. I think, again, integration here is also going to be really important, because there's nothing to suggest that by integrating your digital signage, your operational tools, but also your mobile applications, that wayfinding during the event can almost work like Waze, where you can understand where the best routes are, and if a certain direction is too busy, actually sending people in a different way. So you can help improve the flow of individuals. And again, I think this is actually a really interesting one as well, where we know that there's going to be restrictions in terms of capacity on meeting rooms, and actually having thousands of people in one place is going to be very difficult. But I think if we look to technology to help alleviate some of the concerns there, you can essentially deliver content to rooms if you're in the hotel, or if you're in an event space, there's nothing to suggest that you can't push content to mobiles. And essentially, by geofencing these areas, you can ensure that people are still coming to the event location to access content, but you're able to ease or manage where that content's being delivered. This that ties into the tracking and employee safety, where in situations of people feeling uncomfortable, which there are many when people start getting a bit merry, but even more so now with the added risk of illnesses, is that actually enabling employees or giving employees fobs, which essentially share the location of individuals. So then again, operations security can send people down to help out. The great thing about wireless is that actually, if you do get people to authenticate, you understand who people are, and actually from there, without having to have too many or any complex tools, you can quickly determine who people are coming to contact with, and how long for, and how long those interactions have been. And then the follow-up to events is going to be largely the same, but I think it goes to show that actually, again, we're regaining that confidence of customers by asking if everything was okay, was there any time that they felt unsafe, and then also just working on a basis or a learning basis, because as of opening in October, there's still going to be a lot of unknowns because we've only had to deal with such a small capacity of people to this point. So actually, customer feedback is going to be hyper important. And the other great thing about leveraging digital tools is that it means that you can capture the required information for you to tick the box in terms of that tracing piece, that God forbid there is an outbreak, at least you're covered from a governance standpoint. And as I say, the chat, and I fully understand that the worst hit vertical is hospitality in this, and they're the ones who need these solutions the most. And genuinely, I do believe that these elements can be implemented without there being a large cost to business, because a lot of the technology is already there. And the key thing really is around rebuilding customer and employee confidence. Next slide.
Yep.
So, I will give one plug, and that is that we actually we're already making these solutions a reality. We are providing proof of concepts now to a number of customers to actually put these things into practice, and I think now we've got the guidelines and how events need to reopen and reorganize ready for October. We can get off the fence of the technologies which are going to be important. And the reason I brought this slide in is essentially that we're already working with companies who are making these things a reality. And as part of the call to action and follow up from this, if you would like conversations with any particular area, I'm more than happy to facilitate those discussions. Next slide. Perfect. And just to reiterate, so I think the key changes that we're going to see are going to be those three elements which I mentioned earlier. Internet bandwidth, ensuring that people can continue their new way of working no matter wherever they are. Mobile applications, so being able to, that, as I say, I think that we're going to see them everywhere, and where we haven't already experienced them, they're going to start cropping up. And also the social distancing and contract tracing solutions, because at the end of the day, in a lot of these venues, and it's going to be impossible to actually maintain and mandate social distancing. But as I say, to rebuild that confidence of our customers and employees, we need to demonstrate that we're doing our best efforts to adhere to the standards and the governance that's been set in place.
Thank you, David. I wanted to now just spend a few minutes to summarize some of the thoughts and some of the key takeaways from this webinar. I think it's important to just accept the fact that COVID-19 is here for us to live with until we have a vaccine. But it has decimated a lot of sectors, but it also has given them the opportunity for technology to enable that digital transformation journey. And I think organizations and the events industry now need to kind of adopt these kind of solutions to ensure that the All Secure standard, which is now become mandated, can be enforced. I think technology can help to provide that customer confidence, be it for track and trace, social distancing, be it for heat scanning, for people counting, facial recognition, mobile technology, with the particular with those apps that David was talking about for registering pre-event to post-event surveys and feedback, and security and operations working very closely so that if there is an incident, there's an alerting system so that people can address that incident very, very quickly, and provide the cleaning solutions so that people do feel safe and there's no health risk posed. And I think, on top of that, I think communication is really, really important pre, during and post event, right throughout the journey, so that everybody knows what to do, when to do it, how to go about it, and everybody's abiding to those guidelines that we've mentioned here. And so with that, I'm going to, David, is there anything else you want to reinforce? Otherwise, we're going to open it up for Q&A and discussion.
I think you summarised that really, really well. And I'll before I let you answer the question from Karis called it. One thing I'll add, which is that I think it's the kind of close to that question from Karis, where I think there is still going to be an element of responsibility for individuals attending events, because it's that within your, if you decide to go somewhere, you need to accept that personal responsibility for that decision. But at the same time, as I say, these solutions that we're talking about, and the idea of bringing in technology to support event staff, is to regain that confidence of employees and customers. But Kuldeep, do you want to?
Yeah. I've allowed all participants to unmute themselves, but Carrie, I do know Carrie very well, not very well, but I do agree with your answer, David, because I think there's a need, whilst government, this pandemic is, and the impact of it is new to everybody, right? So I think there's a collective shared responsibility. Government need to be decisive and very supportive of the sector, and I think the sector has driven and lobbied government to reopen as soon as possible, with the health risks understood. But I think there's a responsibility for the venue, for organisers, for exhibitors and individuals to understand what those protocols and controls are, so that we're not just looking after ourselves, but we're looking after others at the same time. And I think that's the kind of more holistic answer. Kerry, do you have any thoughts? I don't know if I've taken you up. Oh, thanks, Beth. Okay.
No, that's fine. I think it was just, again, it's one of those, I'm getting increasingly frustrated with being asked to download a new app every time I go to a new venue to meet someone. And I've started telling people there's no more room on my phone and can they just give me a link? So it was just in terms of these technology solutions, actually, obviously it's going to depend on someone building them and then other people being able to use them, but also those wider questions. And when you mentioned the government role and actually things like transport to the venue, public transport, all of those sorts of things, I think they all have a part to play, and it will be the individuals who decide whether they feel confident enough to come along.
Yeah, and the organisers as well as the venues can liaise and communicate early with those customers to say, look, this is the shuttle services that we can provide, this is when they're on, and it's that enhanced communication, I think, that will really help to ensure people feel safe and secure. But people have to wear their masks. People have to understand that if they're on a tube or in a crowded place, how can they adhere to social distancing. You know, it's a shared responsibility. It's not just one individual, one institution, but there's many people involved in this. David, do you want to say anything else on that, or we'll move on?
I think it's a very fair point. It's all around the application aspect, and I think the way you can alleviate that is the venue themselves taking the ownership for that, because especially if you think of something like the Excel, where you've got so many individuals coming in, or individual organisers trying to do something for every single one, is going to be an absolute nightmare. So actually finding the best way to do things, and the best way where people are going to feel comfortable is definitely going to be a challenge. But I think that those services that you can actually leverage through there, to say through the ticketing or whatever, will kind of negate some of the concerns of people maybe not downloading them, because it's a way that people can access without having to go through the normal procedures of physical security, physical checks, where I think people are just going to want to limit that personal touch as much as possible.
Yeah, one of the things I was thinking about is, you know, there's going to be one-way flow systems in the venues. So again, whilst there might be stewards and security checking, but there's also a responsibility of the individual to ensure that other individuals are doing what they should be doing as well. You know, I've stood in queues before, and English are very good at doing this, queuing up, and then people telling other people off if they jump the queue. So I think we need to make sure that we apply those kind of principles in the social distancing way as well, for the safety of all of us.
If I may ask a couple of
yes,
questions.
Fernando.
Yeah, hi.
Hey.
I have two questions actually. Once with the slides that David shared, particularly slide 15. The question is, are these, and I'm asking this based on his background with HP, of course, Aruba HP, that are these solutions based on more with the wireless system, existing wireless system of the venue, or these are specific solutions that you have to procure and, you know, get them? I know it's not a technology session, I don't want to get too technical, but my question is that something that can be leveraged with an existing technology in place, because you know, costs have to be managed, and with the pandemic kind of still going on, business not so high. So that's the question for David primarily. And I know a solution that Aruba's come up with called Plexus, and I don't want to get into the technology as such, but my question is primarily, how much are these kind of solutions that can be used with existing infrastructure that's already in place? That's in summary.
I think that's for you, David, but I can answer as well if you want.
Yeah, well, I'll give a short answer. And I've been trying to keep myself on a bit of a leash, not to just talk about Aruba. So I'll do my best not to. But I think it'd be great to actually spend a bit of time to understand a little bit more to where the base of the question comes from, following the call. But it's going to be a combination of both, right? Because with anything with technology, it depends on what's in there. But a lot of the things that we do from where I mentioned the ecosystem partners on my slide 15, which you mentioned, I know a lot of those guys are agnostic and can go over any technology. But then at the same time, within the Aruba portfolio, there's a lot of feature set and functionality which you can leverage without having to overlay a great amount of other technologies. But as I say, it wouldn't necessarily require it wouldn't necessarily require actually a full refresh to be able to get some of the great value from these ecosystem partners.
Okay. And the other question that I had was, how do you see the, you know, And something, Kuldeep, you spoke about, about digital inclusion and all. There's a large number of the big population who work in the industry don't like technology generally, like
Yes.
shaking hands. So, so how do we change the culture? Really, I mean, that's
Yes.
I think is the biggest challenge as technology professionals we have.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And having worked in technology and this industry for a long time, it's the question that I always kind of get posed with. So, pre-COVID, there were always some excuse, or there was always some barrier, or some silo that prevented technology adoption for whatever reason. Okay, and we had to spend a lot of time understanding stakeholders, understanding their needs, understanding why they didn't want something to happen. And I think COVID-19 gave us fantastic momentum to put in digital workplace solutions, and we had to do it. And now, the senior leaders, the C-suite leaders have seen that. I think we need to capitalize on that to ensure that now that IT departments have raised their game to ensure that digital workplace has been successful, is to think about the next wave of technology adoption. So I think there's a momentum, we need to build on that momentum, but we can't lose track of doing all the good things that we do with change management. So the things that I've learned in my experience of getting people to adopt technology requires effective communication of benefits at a local level, across the business to individuals and teams and groups. It requires innovators and change agents and mechanisms around change management to be designed and developed across an organization. It requires the innovators and those early adopters to champion the change, the technology change. It requires those then for the next majority adopters to kind of come on board. And let's not focus so much on the laggards, if I want to say, the people who just are anti-everything for whatever reason there might be. Let's not focus on them. Let's focus on the momentum we've got, focus on the innovation, focus on the scale up, focus on the communication to think about the next wave of technology adoption. So that could be enhanced technology around collaboration, next technology roadmaps for Zoom, for whatever the next piece, and I'm sure there's going to be lots of new platforms, collaboration platforms that will emerge from this. So I think what I'm really trying to say around digital inclusion is, let's build on what we've got. Let's not forget how to do change management. Let's not be complacent as technology leaders, and this requires technology leaders to continue to say, look, we grabbed a tool last time as COVID-19 hit, we scaled it up quickly, we made sure it was secure, and then we iteratively adapted it and built it. Let's try those techniques for the future, but we need to be telling those stories across our organization so they understand that this is a better way of working in an iterative, agile, DevOps kind of world. I think I think the answer to your question, which whilst I've answered it in a long-winded way, is we cannot stop. We've got to continue to do the things that we're doing before around change management.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Lisa, will do. Russ, would you expect venues, events to provide masks for consumers or refuse entry for those without? Or is there another option?
Sorry, I couldn't quite hear you, David.
I'll go again. So we've had a question from Lisa as well to say, would you expect venues or events to provide masks for consumers or refuse entry for those without? Or is there another option?
That's an interesting and very practical question. I think it should be part of the organizer pack to say, or a combination of venue and organizer to say, look, part of your registration process, you will have a mask available for you. If you don't bring one, we will give you one. And that way it kind of enforces the protocols. And I think organisers will not let people in if they don't have a mask, or they shouldn't.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, I think it's an amazing sponsorship opportunity to for someone to take on providing their logo on masks, because you're going to see it absolutely everywhere. Yeah,
yeah. I think, and David, I think whilst I don't think the government has been great around masks. You know, if you go back 4 months, they were saying we're not sure that it actually helps the spread of the infection. Now they're making it mandatory in all shops, yeah, but they haven't made it mandatory in pubs, right? And I think this is where, back to Carrie's point, I think the government needs to be a bit clearer on some of these guidelines, where they need to say, look, masks are now mandatory. And I think they, I'm just trying to recall, I think they should be mandatory at all events. Sorry, I didn't quite pick up where the question was from Lisa. Is it?
Chat.
Okay. Is there any other questions or any queries at this stage? And I know that a couple of people have had to drop off.
I can ask one more from the venue point of view. Yeah. So do venues really now it's a competition, isn't it? I mean, there's purely for venues, organizer can just go to a platform provider, the Zooms of the world, and they can still conduct an event. I'm not giving ideas to others. That's the fact. So do venues need to start thinking otherwise, other than obviously the physical aspect of safeguarding people, etc.? But what's the future? What can they think of? What can they do? Yeah, I mean, and we all know about the hospitals that were created, and I hope they don't continue any further. But what else really the venues can think about?
Yeah, and so I think they need to start putting on their innovation hat on a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think in the near and medium future, the hybrid events are going to be predominating. And I'll be really keen to see how the physical events go 1st of October, and what does the split between in that hybrid model, how many people attend physical events, and how many are attending that event virtually. It'll be interesting to look at that stats, and I think that data, the AI and the data around that, will be quite intriguing to see how that model shifts over time. Does it stay static? Is there a 50-50 split? Which way does it go? So that's going to be really interesting. So what do you do to, I think if I read the question correctly, Sunando, what can venues and organisers do to increase their sustenance?
Yeah.
New revenue streams.
Revenue streams.
Yeah. So that's where I think they need to be very innovative and creative about what they can maybe do with merchandising, advertising, food and beverage. Will there be a shift to different types of hygiene or foods and catering for different market? What kind of individual come to a physical event, and what will their eating habits be different? I don't know. There's got to be some thought that needs to be put into that. And I think the food is going to be probably pre-packaged. Yeah. It's going to be available pre-packaged and delivered into a room, and then people go and collect it. There's advertising aspects that could be brought into that. There's different types of foods that need to be processed for high. There's all sorts of thoughts that need to be, I think, venues and organisers need to think about in terms of thinking about what other revenue streams they could bring to bear. Because I can just I'll give you an example. At Excel, when you walk into the boulevard, you'll see a Costa. Now that Costa is the second. There's two Costas, one in the west entrance and one at the east entrance. The one at the west entrance is the second highest taking Costa in the UK in terms of revenue. Now, with a hybrid event, number of people are going to decrease. Therefore, there's going to be a reduction in revenue. So they're going to have to come up with new ways of promoting their services or different types of services. And I'm just thinking, what else can you do?
I was thinking while you were talking, maybe digital marketing is something that really is something that, and using access points, etc., to do promotions for whatever number of people are there in the venue. I'm just thinking while you were speaking.
Yeah. I was going to comment to that.
I think that's exactly it as well, right? Is that a lot of these solutions that we're talking about can be obviously predominantly have come from a new revenue stream background, and especially like those with the triple plays and the real life techs, where they've been born into the world of digital platforms to increase spend. So it's just an added benefit now that we're able to re-leverage them for health and safety. But as we continue forward, they're nothing here that we've spoken about is going to be a sunk investment. It is all repurposable to make the most out of those who are actually attending on site.
Yeah, I agree, and I think we've spoken about this before, Sananda, haven't we? I think this is another. I've got a very technology focus on. I think this is a great time for the digital marketeers as well to raise their game, not only in the content but the type of content, and refocus. And everybody uses this word pivot. They need to pivot themselves in accordance with what the business needs are. Absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you.
Just going to, it's coming up to 5:02. We still got 5 more minutes. If there's another burning question or any thoughts, even we have something. David has done. He's muted himself again, so I'll unmute him. David, can you hear us?
But now that I think nothing more from me.
I'll give it another 10 seconds. If there isn't any other burning questions, we will bring the webinar to a close. We have recorded the webinar. I am going to make a confession. I think I missed the first few minutes of the introduction while recording, so I'm going to apologize for that, but we will put it up on the LinkedIn web stream so that the people who weren't able to make it can view it in their time. Oh, Lisa. Lisa's got a question. David, do you want to, shall I read it out?
I can see it, and I think it depends. I guess it depends on the event, right? For events like this, yes, because we did this. We've planned this over the last month as we were waiting for the guidelines to really come out, and it's quite easy for us to be able to go quite quickly. But then that's quite a low scale compared to actually how digital platforms can be leveraged to reach a global, or not only global, but a very broad audience. So I think in those perspectives, I don't think you should expect them to be free, or I don't think there should be an expectancy for them to be free, because not only because of the cost of setting them up, but I think when people have also committed some spend, and that obviously depends on the event organisers to determine the cost, is that it also does guarantee attendance. Everyone hates wasting, or everyone hates waste, right? And nothing more so than the money. So I think the best way to guarantee people attend, but also make the most out of these events, because the way that you can deliver them gets much greater the more things that you can make the most of to actually put these on. I think absolutely they'll continue to be chargeable, and I don't know if I think the cost will be variable based on whether or not you attend physically or if you intend to attend virtually.
Yeah, I would probably concur with that. I think with the industry being hit so hard and a return come 1st of October, I think in the background, I think there's a lot of contractual discussions going on. Sorry, there's probably a lot of contractual discussions going on between venues and organisers around bringing events back online, and escrow and all sorts of stuff around, the event was going to cost X, but now we have to postpone it. What does that mean? What does that mean from a legal perspective? So I think a lot of the industry are trying to recover. So I don't think they will go back to, they will actually move to a free kind of scenario in the short term. Right. I feel like a bit of a coroner. It's now, what's the time? It's now 2 minutes to. I will give another 5 seconds. Oh, Miguel. Miguel's got a question. Great point, Miguel. Yeah, I don't. I'm venture. I think David's gone to a pub much more than me over the last few weeks, but I'm going to. I've been to one drink session. I'm going to another one next week, and I'm being very, very cautious because the world has changed. The environments that we used to go to publicly have changed. We need to be more aware. Society needs to be more aware. We need to adhere to the advice and the guidance. And I do agree, mate. Your observation is increased. Normal things is, it's just a thought. And I think maybe I'd be interested in your view, Miguel. What else do you think we could do, or the government can do to ensure safety? Apart from what's already in place. I'm open to some thoughts on that one. But thank you, Miguel. It is now 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, I should say. So I'm going to close the webinar, and just wanted to thank everybody for taking their. Oh, sorry, Miguel wants to say something. Okay. Escape. Just get you back on. Do you try now, Miguel? Miguel, are you there? Try now. Oh, there you go.
Oh, no, right now.
Yeah, go for it, Miguel. Sorry about
sorry. Colin, thank you very much. It was an excellent webinar. And, my thought is perhaps thinking about in a more systemic view about how we can take advantage of the digital transformation, all the digital mindset we can apply. We can have, to have this kind of awareness, general overall awareness in the society, and we can take advantage and have good use of the technology to support our new ways of maybe new things in life in the future. Yeah, I totally agree, and I really appreciate all the contents in this webinar.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Miguel. I think digitally, people we mentioned digital inclusion. I think there's something about focusing on the digital exclusion, right? The people who are excluded from technology. I think, if you look at some of the research reports, 70-80% of people in this country have access to high-speed broadband, but there's 10-20% that haven't, or it could be less than that, but there's a lot of people that haven't got access to be able to communicate, and some people are afraid of it.
Yeah.
People of particular generations fear it, but over the lockdown, I've seen grandparents and parents jumping on to Zoom calls. Telemedicine has been amazing because it's allowed doctors and GPs to talk to patients to help them with their well-being. Technology breaks barriers, and I think the more we can promote technology for the good of the citizens and the customers, the better. So yeah, I think again that's a more investment in digital inclusion is important.
Absolutely. Thank you, Golden. And thank you, David, as well.
Yeah. Okay. I am definitely going to close the webinar now.
Yeah. Sorry for.
No. It's absolutely fine. Absolutely lovely to see so many people that we know. I wanted to thank David for joining me today. Our contact details are there. Please reach out to us if you have any further questions. As I said, we'll post up the webinar. And thank you again for sparing an hour when the weather's really, really nice, and you should be having ice cream and beers maybe.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.